please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, good evening, everyone. Call the meeting to order at 7:02 p.m. And we'll start with public comment. Is there any public comment? Is there any public comment? Hearing no public comment, we'll close public comment. We'll move on to item number 4, approve minutes from the May 7, 2019 Ordinance Committee meeting. Motion by Al, second by, is that you, Bob?
Yep.
By Bob. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. Chair votes aye. Motion passes 5-0-2. And note Rob and Trish's abstention. Item number 5, approve minutes from the May 7, 2019 regular meeting. Can I have a motion to do so?
So moved.
Motion by Bob, second by, who was that? Stefan? Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? Chair votes aye. Motion passes 6-0-1. Please note Trish's abstention. Oh, okay, 5-0-2. Oh, that's right. Thought you were mixing up a little bit. Item number 6, first Selectmen's report. I'd like to thank all the residents that came out to vote on our annual town budget. While I'm very happy that both the town and Board of Ed budgets passed overwhelmingly, it is very disappointing to see the overall turnout. We will continue to try to find ways to improve voter turnout and are open to any and all suggestions that people may have. Met with representatives from the U.S. Census Bureau to discuss the upcoming census and what the towns can do to help the process. The town will be doing as much as it can to help with process and providing as much information and resources as possible. Negotiations with the Seymour Police Unions are ongoing. Things are moving along nicely, and I expect to have something for this board to review in the next month or so. Communications Commission has met several times regarding changes and updates to our emergency service communication systems. I expect to have information for our last meeting in June for the board to review. Discussion regarding a potential new community center is ongoing. We're still very early in the planning, but we'll provide updates as we move along. And I think we'll probably hear a little bit about that one from the facilities report from Tim Connors. We'll be planning a fall referendum to vote on 3 specific issues to prepare for potential bonding in the near future. One question will be on a new community center, one question on a $5 million road package, and one on new emergency services communication system. The end of the fiscal year is quickly approaching, and department heads are working to close out their budgets. Finance is projecting a small surplus this year of about $125,000. I'll continue to provide updates in the coming weeks leading up to the final closeout. And then the final piece, and Monica, this is not on there. We had our mass casualty incident drill on Sunday. It was very well attended, very well done. So I commend Seymour Police, Seymour Fire, Seymour Ambulance, all our emergency service, our CERT folks for the time and effort that they put in. We're there for about close to 7 hours, which was good. We learned a lot of things. It's great practice for our police officers. At one point, we actually stopped the drill to allow the police officers to do something a little bit extra for practice, which was good. Fire department got practice, ambulance got practice. We're going to do another drill at some point in the fall, and they're determining on what that will be. So again, I'm not going to say anything publicly about what the drill is about what we did, but if anyone has any questions, please feel free to see me offline, and I'll be happy to tell you what it was. So with that, we'll close the first Selectmen's report, and we'll move on to item number 7, which is, actually, hold on one second. Sorry. So hold on a second. I make a motion to add to the agenda discussion possible action regarding assessors' request for the town homeowners program.
So moved.
Motion by Anne Marie, second by Al. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstained? Chair votes aye. Motion passes 7-0. Next item on the agenda is a note we have, and you should have these in front of you, from our assessor's office with regards to the town homeowners program. I'll just read this into the record. We'll vote. We can move on. This is to inform you that we have 245 applicants eligible for the town homeowners program. The town has approved a line item of $50,000 for the program. The recommendation of this office is that the applicants be granted a benefit of $200 for those that have 100% ownership or of life use of their property. Those having ownership of less than 100% will have the benefit prorated by their percentage. Please advise this office of the decision of the Board of Selectmen regarding the granting of the benefits. And that comes from Joseph Kusiak, our assessor, Doug Thomas, our finance director, and Dana Flock, our tax collector. So at this point, I'll entertain a motion that we approve the town homeowners program benefits per applicant of $200 as recommended by Joe Kusiak, Doug Thomas, and Dana Flock.
So moved.
Motion by Anne Marie, second by Al. Just under questions, this is the senior citizen tax freeze. That's what we call it in our budget. Okay, any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, chair votes aye, motion passes 7-0. Next item, item number 7, discussion take possible action regarding NVCOG Regional Watershed Treatment Consolidation Study. Gentlemen. Actually, if you want to take the microphone, and who's ever speaking, please talk into it. So they may not be able to see everything, but at least they'll be able to hear kind of what you're saying.
Thank you, Mr. First Selectman. Good evening, everyone. I'm John DiCarlo. I'm Municipal Shared Services Director for the Naugatuck Valley Council of Governments. I'm also Project Manager for the Regional Wastewater Treatment Consolidation Study. Tonight is the 5th of 5 presentations we're doing for the legislative bodies in the 5 communities where the plants are located, plants and collection systems are located that we're studying as part of this study. We've been looking forward to coming to Seymour as we've had some great dialogue and provided information and got some really good questions from the previous 4 boards. Your board meets latest in the month, which is why we're here as number 5, but we're very much looking forward to engaging with you. With me tonight is Rick Dunn, Executive Director of Naugatuck Valley Council of Governments, and Mario Francucci, who is Senior Project Manager for Black & Veatch. We've hired as our consultant on this study. I'll turn it over to Rick now to start the program.
Thank you, John. I want to thank the Board of Selectmen for this time tonight. We'll make this relatively quick and painless for you. We won't be long, I promise. I promise 10 minutes to everyone else, so we'll try and make it that quick. So the study is funded by the State Office of Policy and Management. It is voluntary, and the 5 communities are Naugatuck, Beacon Falls, Seymour, Ansonia, and Derby. As I said, it's voluntary, so at any point during this study, from phase 1, which we're in now, through phase 2, should you choose to opt out of it, that is your decision. You can make that decision at any time in this process. We've done in phase 1, developed the base case scenarios. Mario will talk more about it from an engineering perspective when he gets up as soon as I shut up. But the base case was developed so there would be something to compare against. And what this represents is the cost of operating your plant on a go-it-alone basis out through 2040. The cost of upgrading your plant, dealing with your collection system, dealing with pump stations. We looked at that in all 5 towns. All told, there's probably somewhere in the neighborhood of, to be honest, more like $300 million of improvements. So what we're looking at is, from a statewide perspective, how do we lower costs for both taxpayers, users, and taxpayers at the state level? Because the state is in for some of these costs. Under the Clean Water Program, they subsidize these improvements. They pay a piece of the bill, not just the debt service, but about 25% of the cost. There's a 10-year wait as well, usually, something like 10 years, before you get to high enough on the list to get funded under the program and authorized. So we have a couple of goals here. One is to see if we can lower costs by grouping some of these towns together, and if you choose to voluntarily join together with towns, we don't really have an idea that all 5 towns are going to become one regional wastewater entity, one plant. There's probably going to be a couple of plants. Maybe there's a possibility to bring together 2, 3 communities. Maybe out of this, one community has a better relationship with another community they provide service to. We don't know. We won't know that until phase 2, when we have something to compare the base cases against some of the regional solutions. When we get to phase 2, the other thing that we're going to do is we're going to look at a governance model. So there'll be model regulations that we develop and look at that you'll be able to view as to how a regional operation may operate. One of the things you're going to have to consider for yourselves is how the investment that you've made in your own community system comes together with some other communities under various scenarios. How does your plant investment, your collection system investment, how does your deferred maintenance match up with another community you might match up with in a regional scenario? And how do we equalize those costs? That's sort of an additional third step we're going to have to look at if any of the regional solutions look feasible. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Mario Francucci from Black and Veatch, the lead engineer on the study, and we're going to let him talk a little more, and then we'll take your questions.
Thanks. Thanks for your attention. Let me just try to step through. Rick said it well, but let me just try to maybe add some of that in my own words. What are we trying to do? We're trying to determine
Mario,
whether.
If I could just say for everyone, I forgot to say this, everything we have here are in the reports that we handed out to you, so it's all in there, and if anyone wants to find this on our website, nvcogct.gov, under plans and studies, it's all there, you get the full report.
What we're trying to do is determine whether Seymour and the other communities that are in the study should continue to do what you're presently doing with your wastewater systems, which is to take care of Seymour, in this case, the plant and the collection system, or if there's economy scale, if it makes more sense, if it makes better sense from a financial perspective, both capital and long-term O&M, to merge with one of the other communities or other communities to provide a regional solution to your wastewater challenges and issues. That's the objective. That will be ultimately determined at the end of phase 2. Phase 2 is, we're soon going to embark on phase 2, I hope, and that will be about a one-year process. So by about this time next year, assuming that we start today, which we're not going to start today, but close enough, we should come back with solid answers. In fact, you'll get answers even earlier than next year at this time. Okay, so phase 1, what have we done in phase 1? What have you done so far? What we've done in phase 1, as Rick said, is we tried to get a good handle as best we could on a 1,000-foot level, not way down into the details, on what your systems entail right now. What are the challenges at the plant? What have you done at the plant? What is the plan going forward at the plant? And the same thing for the collection system, which is the pipe system and the pump stations. How have we done that? We've done that mostly by visiting your facility, and with other associates that I have on my team, to look at the entire plant from stem to stern, from the very, very beginning where the wastewater comes in to where it discharges as a clean effluent back to the Naugatuck River. And we took a look at all of the processes. We took a look at the screening, because that's what you have. You have screening, and you have grit removal, and you have influent pumping, and you have primary clarifiers, and aeration tanks, and biological system final clarifiers, and disinfection, and also phosphorus control. And we looked at all of that. We also interviewed your staff, particularly we met with John Lavolsi as well, WPCA chair. We also met with Walter Royals, your plant manager. We also went back and took a look as close as we could to the studies that were done. And I think everybody on this board knows you haven't had any recent studies at the plant. You did implement that phosphorus treatment system, and good work on that, because it's working and it's meeting the requirements that the state has put on you. So what we've done is we've taken a look, and by the way, the other thing to note is that OPM, who is one of the administrative bodies that this study reports up to, is requiring us to look at a 20-year plan. But we're not just looking at what you need to do now, what you need in terms of 20 years. So we took a look at population projections, and we did that by not only interviewing your staff and your town engineer, but also we went to the state data center, which is Connecticut State Data Center. We took a look at what kind of flows you're going to need, you're projecting forward to 20 years. We did not try to predict what the regulations might do. That no one can do that with reasonable certainty. So we took a look at your facilities, and your facilities, the good news is that they're working and that they're complying with the permit. The bad news, or the more challenging news, is that they are old facilities. They will need a significant upgrade at some point. And I don't believe any of this is new to you. But also your electrical systems, all the way, not only the main systems that you can see, but even the subsystems, the backbone systems like the electrical systems, which do get old. They're, for instance, the electrical system is at least 25 years old, and that's getting close to its useful life. And when I talk about useful life, they'll continue to operate, but their reliability gets less and less as time goes forward. So what we've done is we, on a planning level basis, looking 20 years down the line in terms of what the needs are, we've assigned a cost to your treatment plant on what it would take to upgrade that facility to a more modern facility that will continue to give you the reliability that it needs and that you want it to have 20 years forward. And we've assigned basically a $40 million price tag on that, and that's kind of an all-in cost with administration and construction administration. But that number is, again, it's a planning level number. Do I have a detailed set of plans on which I did quantity takeoffs? No. Do I have detailed spreadsheets on how we did that? No. But what we do is we do planning level studies at all phases of a study, from the detailed end, which I just cited, to very, very conceptual level. So it's a conceptual level number. But why is that important? These numbers are important because at some point we're going to be comparing what you have now to a regionalization alternative. But we need to make sure that we're identifying the best numbers that we have now so that we can compare them to regionalization alternatives. We're not done yet. We're going to, in phase 2, we will be looking at this. We're going to be drilling down a little further to try to certainly have even more confidence in this number. We will be engaging you again, and we had workshops before. We will have workshops again later. This process and project cannot survive. It is foundational that it starts and ends with communication and interaction with you, the owner. But we also did the collection system. It's kind of an out-of-sight, out-of-mind system, not just here, but even in the town where I live in. There's not a lot that's been done with the collection system. So we've assigned collection system costs as well, and the pump stations operating well, but the last upgrade was about 10 years ago at the 2 pump stations, the South Derby and the North Derby facilities. And so we've assigned a cost there. So we're looking at pretty much a $50 million cost overall for Seymour, covering all of the 3 major components of the wastewater system: the plant, the collection system, and the pump stations. And by the way, as you can see, it's pretty much the price tag is on the order of about $250 million for all communities, all in on this. That could be light. So that's what we've done so far, and kind of just in general terms. The other thing that we did was, as part of phase 1, was we identified the long list of alternatives, the long list of regional wastewater alternatives. And here they are right here. As Rick said, they're in your report. They're also on the website. And the whole lot of the print gets smaller here. I think you can see it. And there's about 12 of them, and they're paired. A lot of them are paired because one of the biggest ways to make facilities smaller is if you can wring out that rainwater, that extraneous water that comes into the pipes. When you can do that, your facilities at the plant get smaller, And guess what? Smaller facilities cost less. So, but there's a price tag with also taking the storm water, the extra water out of the pipes. So there's a cost there. So the right balance needs to be found and needs to be determined. So the 3 and the 3A are, 3 is, for instance, Derby, just pointing out Derby to Ansonia, but 3A is Derby to Ansonia with aggressive I&I reduction. And that's what the A represents. So we've looked at a number of options, even a number of alternatives, regional alternatives even for Seymour. To suffice it to say that at this point, we have put everything on the table at phase 1. We tried not to say that doesn't make sense. We did not say that. So that was our mandate, was we need to identify the regional, what are they? Just list them out, and then we're going to pare them down in phase 2. We've actually tried to pare them down even in phase 1. There was only one that we took out. It just didn't make sense. But we're going to we're going to screen this down to a more manageable group as one of the first tasks in phase 2, and then we're going to provide some detailed review, engineering, and other, and with you to try to shrink that subset down to the best group, and that best group will reflect the regional wastewater alternatives that we would like to go forward with. And when I say we, it means we. So, and then after that, we will prepare a report, and ultimately there's an EIE process that the state requires that would happen. So that's basically what those next steps are. We'll do a more detailed condition assessment. We might even do some targeted flow monitoring. In some of the communities, we don't even know how much wastewater is coming into the plant. That doesn't mean we would do it here, but we do have a plan that we might do some of that. We'll do further assessments of the plant, along with reviewing of costs, reviewing schedule. We'll screen that short list of alternatives, kind of just repeating some of the things I said right now. And then we'll determine those preferred alternatives to carry forward as regional wastewater alternatives. That's what I've got.
So, thank you for the presentation, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Thank you for the presentation, it's very informal, and I'm glad our taxpayers are able to see it, because we have it televised, unlike the workshops that we have had. My question, I've asked this in our meetings, in our budget meetings, but I want to make sure everybody understands that. I know the state gave us the money, so we can do this regionalization, so we can do the study on it. This regionalization takes over, they say, yep, we're going to do it. Where is that money going to come from?
So you're saying if multiple towns opt to move forward with one of the regionalization options
Yes.
from a short list of alternatives, what we would anticipate at that point is that those towns would make a joint application under the Clean Water Program.
Right.
Then we would anticipate that both DEEP, OPM, and the administration would move that application to the top of the list. And then we'd be able to move forward with the process. If we have somewhere in the neighborhood of $300 million worth of cost between 5 plants that will be financed at some point by the state taxpayers under the Clean Water Program, if we can find a way to eliminate $50 million or $80 million or even $100 million worth of that eventual debt, then we feel that that's an appropriate candidate to be moved up the list in the Clean Water Program. So we're going to take this step by step with the state. We're doing a study. We'll put together a proposal from any towns that voluntarily come together. We'll move that proposal into the process with the state, and we hope that they'll see the value in that and then move that up the chain. Seymour is not in the position that some of the other towns are in, where you don't have orders against you like some of the other communities do.
No, we don't.
So, you're in a better position in terms of having some time to think about this. Whether your plant needs improvements over the 20-year period is a different
That's a
issue.
story, right.
So I think you have some time to think about this. Some of the other communities are going to be given more time to think about this, but it's on everybody's radar at the state level, the regional level, and the local level. And if we come up with solutions that will work, then we think there's a good chance of the funding being put in place and it being prioritized. The thing I will tell you is, do not stop anything you're doing at your municipal level to plan for your own facilities, to move forward with funding for those and going and putting it in the hopper with DEEP for clean water funding on your own. Don't stop anything you're doing right now.
No, I just wanted to make sure that I know that the state had paid for the study. And on our last meeting, we were talking about, the regionalization and bringing them together, and we know that the Seymour is nowhere near to its capacity level, so we're able to take in more through Oxford, which is not even on that, bringing in Oxford, right? So we know we can do that. I just want to make sure that if the state comes down and says, hey, listen, we are going to do the regionalization, because there is that chance of them coming down and saying, we are going to do the regionalization. Who is that burden going to go on to? Is it going to go on to the town?
Yeah, but I would disagree with your premise. The state is not going to come in
They're
and
not
say,
gonna come in.
you have to regionalize. That's not what's on the table here.
Okay.
You know.
I just want to make sure it's not going to come down and they're going to say, you're going to have to regionalize if you do it this way. And if we do regionalize, who is going to be the burden of that? Which tax? All of the state?
No, here's what I think. I think there will be a stick. This is just my prediction, because they haven't changed any of the rules.
Okay.
If towns continue to go it alone,
Mm-hmm.
I think the state will just not reimburse you for your investments in upgrading your plants in the future. I think that's what's going to happen.
Because they're already taking the credits away.
Right. So I think those that choose to join together and regionalize will get that assistance from the state, and those that don't are going to be left to pay 100% of the bill on their own. So those costs are going to rise for those users in those communities, and the ones that join together and achieve more efficiency are going to get more subsidy. I think that's what's going to happen. The state just, they've announced, and this administration has announced the policy, they don't want to invest in less efficient systems.
Okay, great.
I have a question. So have we had any other towns that have participated in that as an example that we could take a look at?
So in Connecticut, who have already regionalized?
Yeah.
So not under the scenario we're looking at, but that Matabasset has already, how many towns was that?
Matabasset has 4 towns, I believe, that make up its district. But there have been no, this study is actually going to serve as a model statewide on how communities that have forever, just like Seymour, have been taking care of their own business can somehow break that bond, chemical engineering speak, and speak as a and basically work as a true regional entity. So
Because it brings up the next question. So it's if your public works department, so that becomes regionalized, and how does that work?
So there are a number, there will be, depending on the towns, there'll be a number of bargaining unit issues to overcome, as well as municipal department issues to overcome. Every town I shouldn't say, every town does not have a separate WPCA board. Every town does not have a separate department for their WPCA. And some towns have a separate WPCA bargaining unit that takes care of the plant only, and their highway department takes care of the collection system. So there are different complications involving the bargaining units. We're going to look at that in a limited way in phase 2 as part of the governance study, but consolidation of and it's really about bargaining units. Towns can consolidate departments easily.
Right.
Bargaining units is a different issue. So, but that's going to require a little more negotiation. And but phase in, I think, is the way to think about that.
Quick question. The towns that you have listed there. Towns that you have listed there, why these towns? I would imagine proximity, but what about Shelton to Ansonia, Oxford to Seymour, any other stretching out?
These are the voluntary participants in the study. Shelton did not opt in, Waterbury did not opt in. But you're right. We looked at the Naugatuck River corridor. It made sense. There are, I always get this wrong, 7 plants?
We did offer all of them a chance to participate.
And there are some other plants that feed into the same corridor. The one in Southbury and Pomperaug River, I think, eventually makes its way this way or something. Or we get from Southbury and Middlebury other, it's pumped over to Naugatuck, I think, from one or both of those towns.
And we take Oxford, too.
Yeah,
You
you
take
take Oxford, Derby gets from Orange, Ansonia and Derby share, you know, I mean, everybody gets something from, and Naugatuck, I think it's from Prospect.
Was there any,
And Prospect? Someone? Okay. But the point is that if you were going to build a system even for just these 5 towns today, you would not build these 5 plants in this way. You know, if you're going to design a wastewater system, this is not the system you would design if you're doing it from scratch today. We're trying to get back closer to that, something more efficient. You know, the other thing to remember is the collection system underground. This is the thing that nobody, as Mario touched on, nobody really thinks about this. Whether it's in your WPCA's responsibility or your Public Works Department's responsibility. You know, we have to think about it this way. If pipe has a best case scenario of lasting 100 years, then we should be putting away 1% a year to maintain pipe. And we don't. We just don't do it. And nobody's free from sin in this one. Every town has failed to invest in this. And, you know, we've seen the stories about collapse of pipes elsewhere. You know, this is going to happen to everyone.
was there any further discussion with the towns who opted out?
Limited. If you saw, Waterbury ended up, they were in the midst of some negotiations to privatize the operations of their plant. So Jacobs Engineering now operates the Waterbury plant, and all the employees became Jacobs employees. Shelton had just completed an expansion, and they claim they need all their capacity for their own future expansion. So, and they're on the other side of the Housatonic River. The other thing that's different, you'll see some of these routings go to Derby. Mario can tell you, Derby doesn't have to comply with phosphorus because it discharges into the Housatonic River as opposed to the Naugatuck River.
Right.
So there's some issues there with piping and other things that can be done that could be less expensive in terms of treatment.
Other questions?
I might have misunderstood a little bit when you were talking, and if so, I apologize. The numbers that you provided here as an estimate, are those numbers going to be continued to be refined at all as you look into alternatives, or what's going to happen with that?
We will continue to look at the numbers. I'm not sure how much refinement we're going to do but we're going to endeavor to understand. The more we understand about the condition of these facilities, the more we understand what needs to be done to those facilities, the more certainty we will have about the number as well. So it's the need and the condition that relates to the number. We'd have to develop plans, actual drawings, to do an additional level of detail. We're not going to do that, but suffice it to say that this is how planning is done. This is how we do planning always, and so from a planning level, it will reflect what's needed.
Okay. Yeah, just my concern would be if you guys come back with, you know, maybe 3 proposals or something that we can consider, and you have a much more granular number for those, and we're basing the comparison off of these numbers, and these numbers were very high level, we might not know what the actual benefit of regionalization would be. So that would be my one concern.
It's an excellent comment. All of them will be at the same base.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so you're going to put the same level of care into whatever numbers you bring next time as
For
what
all-
these numbers are.
For all the
Okay.
communities and for regionalization
Yeah,
alternatives.
so you won't be comparing apples to oranges, essentially.
Correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
All right, thank you.
But I just want to say, we're not developing facility plans for each of these plants. These numbers are good enough
Sure.
for our comparisons.
Right, but the biggest consideration, or one of the biggest considerations, is going to be cost savings, right? I mean, I think that's
Right.
the most logical. So we
Right.
would like to know what the cost savings are going to be at
No,
the most accurate possible level.
No, absolutely. But I want to make sure everyone understands this. These are order of magnitude numbers, and if you look at the actual study, if you go to, I think it's Appendix A, page 5 is the Seymour review of the plant, of your plant, you'll see the level of care and investigation that was put into this, and then they placed numbers and values on that, on that inspection. It's not, they're not plans. They didn't develop
No, no.
facility plans for you. So, I mean, I don't think you're going to get tighter numbers. Honestly, I don't want to spend the money from my study tightening those numbers further because I'm not going to get enough impact on the regional evaluation. I get your point.
Yeah.
I just don't want you to have a different expectation beyond what we're going to be able to deliver. The comparison will be order of magnitude. So you'll have numbers to compare.
Sure.
But
Yeah,
you know,
that's
I don't want you to feel, I don't want you to expect something too granular.
Yeah, that's fair, but I just want to make sure that we're looking at things that actually make sense.
Absolutely. Yeah, the point is, we will be looking at apples to apples.
Yeah, okay.
As you said, not apples to oranges.
Right.
And we want to make sure that when we identify a regional alternative and we're comparing it to a base case, for instance, the base case in this situation that we're here to talk about is Seymour, staying with Seymour. We want to basically be able to say, okay, so what is that base case? What is the regionalization alternative that we're going to compare to it? And we're going to look at that in terms of capital cost and also life cycle.
Sure.
Yeah.
And just to be clear, I don't doubt your methodologies or anything. I'm not trying to call you into question
No,
here. I'm
great
just-
question. It's a fantastic question. It's a very, very, yeah, we appreciate the question.
All right, thank you.
Raising your hand?
Yeah, I have a question. How long would this project take from start to finish? How long? Yeah, well, how long would if we decide to regionalize, let's say these 5 communities decide to regionalize, how long is it going to take from start to finish to have the project completed?
A long time.
10 years?
So,
10 years?
so,
5
yeah,
years, 10 years?
these projects, these public work projects they're not going to happen in a year. They could happen in a year. They could, everybody here knows that private industry can move a lot quicker than municipal government, and especially when you have a more complex situation with towns merging and having to understand each other and having to listen to each other. So it's going to take, it'll take years, but it all depends on, the entity. If we want to move fast, and there's the energy for that, it will happen. Could it be perhaps 2 or 3 years to formulate the good solid structure, maybe another 3 to 5 years to put the infrastructure in the ground to get that operational, maybe somewhere between 5 to 10 years. Some people might want to say it's going to take even more than that. It all depends on how fast we congeal right at the beginning.
Okay, so I guess my follow-up would be, when you start a project like that and it takes, let's say, upward to 10+ years, will the technology of the project be old school? Yeah, obsolete by the time it's finished, or are we going to be okay here?
We're not going to stop. We're not going to say, well, this was the technology that we identified early on. No, it will. No, we're not going to be old school. We're going to keep pace with that, and there's going to be continuing developments in technology, continuing evolution of treatment systems, and that will be brought to bear.
Okay, so
It
you'll be
needs to-
tweaking and improving as we go along.
It needs
but-
to be.
So, I guess
You want it
the
in-
money question would be, will the cost then increase with the project, and will the final number be moving at the end if you have to make those kinds of tweaks and improvements?
Can answer that question?
Yeah. But treatment technologies, if they're only going to come to bear if it's going to basically be better.
Okay.
It's going to, it's got to be a better mousetrap. Otherwise, it's going to move to the wayside.
Let me just answer your question. If we took, for instance, 3 communities that wanted to regionalize, it would depend on if we're reusing 1 or more plants, building a new plant, connecting those communities in a particular way. That would be the plan. Then you would have probably, I would recommend if you were doing that, you would be creating a single administrative body to govern wastewater for those communities. So it'd be a single body that would take over the infrastructure, take over the operations, probably privatize the whole thing, which would be the likely way to do it.
That's what I was gonna ask next.
Yeah, well, and more than likely, the way to do it would be to enter into a contract with a company that would build it and operate it.
Right.
I have to tell you, since we announced this, we've been approached by probably every major company in the Northeast, in this part of the United States, that operates plants. Everything from, we'll come in and build a plant and guarantee you a user fee for 40 years, to, you know, we'll build it and operate it, to we'll build it, you know, I mean,
Lots of different options.
a million different options today. You know, and I have to tell these people, we can't talk to you. You know, we can't talk to you until there's something, until there's a public entity that can deal with this.
Sure.
But but you're going to have a governing body that will deal with these issues. They're going to have to take over the infrastructure. They're going to have to put together a process, hire a firm, go through an engineering and construction process, and then figure out what that design build process is going to be. And then the engineering of it, incorporating latest technology as you go through that process, so that the day you open it, whether you've converted a plant or built a plant or done some combination of the two, you have the best technology going forward, and being able to comply with your permit and whatever you know those standards to be.
Yeah, I would assume that's best practice anyway. I just wanted to ask, because I don't have a ton of familiarity with construction of this magnitude.
But that's why it could take 7 to 10 years to its full evolution. But I would suggest to you, you're going to be turning this over to a regional entity at the beginning of that process, not at the end of it.
Okay. Makes sense. Thank you.
I have one question. I like to ask silly questions just because I like to understand what appears to be obvious and not make assumptions. So for those communities who didn't want to be a part of this and are not interested in regionalization, the benefits are
Microphone so everybody can hear this one.
I'm having trouble coming up with an answer. Yeah, I don't know that there's a particular benefit to not getting involved in it. I think in Waterbury's case, they were involved in a negotiation at the time. So there was not a point to getting involved.
so it has nothing to do with maintaining control or
Well, hang on 1 second. Let me handle a political question. I'll give you the engineering question.
it actually isn't even a political question.
Well,
I'm just-
maintaining
in
control,
making-
no, control is, I didn't mean in terms
No,
of.
that's okay. It's just in making the decision to not, and whether we decide to, I mean, I understand there's going to be another phase,
Well,
but I'm trying to understand what the benefits are of not being interested in,
The really quick answer is, doing municipal shared services for these communities that we've been doing. The city of Waterbury's magnitude of what it does in general in services is way beyond what the smaller plants are. The 5 that we're looking at are far smaller than the capacity that Waterbury's taking in, and to what Rick said before, they were working on something else the whole time. We did offer it to all the towns to join in on, and a few just raised their hands immediately, including Seymour was right up there at the very beginning of it. But Waterbury had something else going on, and also the magnitude, the volume that they process, they didn't see the need to at that time. In terms of what benefit it would be, they just didn't see a particular benefit of regionalizing or looking at a regional study.
So I would say to you that, so some communities have the attitude that they want to go it alone. They want to control their own destiny, their own fate. They think they can do it better, faster, cheaper. You know, I personally, I don't think there are enough communities of that size to gain that efficiency in Connecticut. There are a few, not many. You know, but that's just my opinion. I work for too many communities who think differently, I guess. But no, I mean, it's about controlling your destiny, you know, and some feel that they can do a better job.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would add to that is that even though you're part of the study, you haven't made a decision yet. You haven't made a decision. You're still in control of Seymour, and that's how it's gonna be
No,
until
I do understand
you
that.
all say that. And basically, what this is gonna allow you to do is it's actually gonna allow you to say, let me see what would happen if I do regionalize. And it's gonna be a great answer, I think, for the community, because you say, you know, we went through this process, and what we're doing right now is what we should continue to do. I think that's what the benefit to me, as I see it. It will really lay out, we're gonna do this in a very unencumbered, very non-biased way, and if it shakes out that regionalization is great for Seymour on a cost basis, then we will present that. And if it doesn't, we're gonna present that too. But there's other factors as well, like Rick said, the governance side and you know, the word that you used about control and so forth. There's got to be a sharing of services, which, you know, you're not doing right now. No one's doing it. We're all provincial, town, and city governments.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from board members? All right, Rich, one question. Is this our decision or WPCA's decision when it gets to the point of making the decision?
It's probably both, because there are various aspects of it. Certainly, the incurring of debt and long-term issues and finance issues implicate the town. Having seen one community look at regionalization and reject it, the issues were local control, the issues were your infrastructure versus somebody else's, the issues are all those things, okay? So you're going to, you know, that's why they're looking at various scenarios. The community that I'm familiar with that rejected a regionalization, they were way beyond study. They rejected it in a referendum, okay? There were documents, there were agreements, and the that particular deal had been approved by the local WPCA as well as the local town council and the mayor, and then sent to the voters, and the voters rejected it. And the issues were things such as the local folks who rejected it felt they were better off having, as ratepayers with a new plant, having control over their destiny instead of getting in with a bunch of New Haven area communities, including the city of New Haven, which has a regional water authority. Not South Central, I'm not talking about, but they have a greater, what is it, the Greater New Haven Water Pollution Control Authority. And so those are the types of things, and it would be both the town and the WPCA, and you're all going to either have to come along or you won't go along, basically. And you'll figure that out. I mean, you're just gaining information, I think, right now. But that might be, those are the types of discussions you'll have.
Okay. Anything else? No? Rick, thanks, Rick, for a tight 10 minutes. We appreciate that.
I tried. Honestly,
40.
we were out.
It's good for Rick.
40.
We were out in every other town in under 15.
You guys asked great questions.
You did. We didn't get any questions anywhere else. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you for your time.
It's good seeing you, Mr. Dunn.
Always a pleasure.
Okay, Mario. You don't want to stay for the rest of the meeting?
Yeah, I'm gonna knock myself a back.
The rest of the meeting will only be about 6 or 7 minutes, now that you've left. Okay. All right, item number 8, discussion with town facilities manager. I don't think that's his title, but I think it's director of facilities. But Tim Connors is here in our ongoing series of having our department heads come in and report to us. Tim's going to give us an overview of where we stand for our municipal buildings and maybe even touch on Board of Ed buildings and then some of the things we're doing in the future. Just make sure you're talking to the mic, Tim, so all right? And you can freestyle if you want.
That's right. I won't start dancing. My name's Tim Connors, Facilities Director for Board of Education and the Town of Seymour. It's a combined position. I know a few of you. I have met a couple of people on the board. But pretty much for the most part, I'll just give you a breakdown of what's been going on within the town and then within the Board of Education. When I was brought in back in November, we had a project going on with the Town Hall, Library, Police Department, which I got pretty much thrown into and started with that also. We're trying to wrap that up as it is right now. We got a bunch of punch list items that need to be taken care of, which is, you know, again, I come from the construction end of it versus, you know, the town aspect of it. It's a little bit different, and the way it's a little bit slower than I like to see it. But again, we're trying to wrap up. There's a lot of steps to take to try to wrap up things and make changes. In which, in the future, what I'd like to see also is, I know there's certain boards that we have for certain areas for different projects that we have going on. In the future, I'd like to see that the people that are on the boards have some idea of what they're looking at. I mean, there's a lot of people that that are on boards that just, you know, look at pretty pictures and think of certain things that are, you know, how they think it should be, not how the mechanics work of certain areas. So that's something in the future I'd like to be part of, if possible. I'm not sure how that works. I could be, you know, speaking above my terms, but in the future, that's how I'd like to see on that part. We are starting a new project, which it was already started before I got here also, which Johnson Controls is doing a solar/energy savings project throughout the schools, the towns, and certain buildings of towns that, which is still in the process of being developed. They started right now with weatherization on some of the doors, windows, changing of boilers and hot water tanks. Like PD is getting a new boiler right now. They're doing a lighting upgrade throughout pretty much all the town buildings to get them up to energy. You know, it's supposed to produce energy savings for us in the long run. And pretty much for the building side of it, for the town building side, like I said, we're just pretty much wrapping up those certain projects right now, which the biggest one was the town hall, which I'm sure you guys all been dealing with for a long time, and it's been dragged out, and which we're coming to the end of it, finally. Again, a lot of punch list items, but we're not closing it out until everything's taken care of and everything's up and running. For the school side, same thing. We're dealing with a lot of old buildings and a lot of old issues. We are with the new project. We are changing out the boilers at the high school. They did take out the pool heater, the pool boiler, which just died the other day, so that's put back into the project. And again, we're doing solar, we're doing roofs, energy upgrades, you know, weatherization, everything across the board to try to make it more energy efficient, all our buildings. For the most part, that's pretty much where we sit right now. So, does anybody have any questions, or did I miss anything?
You mentioned the punch list and everything. Are you the executor of other people's will, kind of, when we say, hey, we want this and this, you start coordinating that, or are you also saying, hey, guys, I've noticed that this needs to get done, and you put that forward?
Pretty much, if it's brought to my attention,
Mhm.
I try to be on every job every day or every project that's going on. I try to make a sweep around, make sure.
As much as you can.
Exactly, and be in the office too. But most of the part, I'm trying to be where I need to be.
Mhm.
Yeah, if something's brought to my attention, again, we have a board that we have to deal with on certain things. So, you know, it gets relayed to me. I bring it to the board, which that's new to me. So it's kind of not a hassle, but it's kind of a fight at that point. There's certain things that should be done the right way versus, you know, they go ahead and do it and then go back and try to fix it afterwards, which costs more money. So that's an issue that I see. There's a lot of that going on. So.
Okay, now do you work hand in hand with like Jim Baldwin at all?
Yes, I do with Jim a lot. Yep.
Okay.
Any questions I do have, I talk to Jim. I talk to everybody within the town that, again, Alex that works for the town, I rely on him a lot for a lot of his issues, a lot of his understanding of the buildings themselves. So there's a lot of people that I do reach out to, so I don't know everything, and I don't say I do, but I try to get into or learn about everything. So.
Okay.
Well, not only is Tim doing the big projects, which are taking up a considerable amount of his time, but he's also responsible for the overall maintenance of the building. So just the, updating of the floors or windows, doors, all that other stuff. So he coordinates with, while the municipal custodians do not report to Tim, they do have a very good and open relationship with Tim. They all work together to get everything done that needs to get done. Tim will be, for next year during budget season, Tim will be more active in the planning and creating of the budget, because he'll have a little bit more firsthand knowledge. We've never had two people with Jim and Tim's experience on staff to be able to oversee these projects. So to Tim's point, and Jim are pretty much at every project every day, checking on things, reporting back. So there's definitely benefit to the town for that. So, who else has questions of?
No, you made one comment on the board. Is it a training issue of maybe how project management works and things like that? Is that where you were going, or?
Not necessarily. I think it's more of if we have a board of 7, if we can find an electrician, an HVAC guy, somebody that has some
Some
sort
more
of
of the experience
knowledge
on
of the process that's going on.
Okay.
That's our biggest issue, because, you could have people on boards that, just like pretty pictures, and that doesn't get us anywhere. It's, everything looks good until after the fact, even when it comes down to, one item here is, we put the nice lights on the front of the building, and now the cameras don't work, nighttime cameras, because it's too close.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. So,
I get it.
small things like that, they're minimal things, but in the long run, $1,000 here, 5,000 here, everything adds up quickly.
What boards are making those decisions other than the building committee? Because the building committee was designed with those types of specialists
Correct.
that you mentioned.
Yes, that's one of the building committee is one of them.
We have
Okay.
too many chiefs.
Yes.
Oh,
I mean, I'll
many doors.
I'll put it a
Thank
little
you.
nicer than Tim would. We have too many chiefs and not enough Indians, I don't know if to use the expression. We have a lot of higher level people in construction companies. It would be good to have just a regular day-to-day electrician, a regular day-to-day plumber, where we have and not to pick anybody, but, we have a Mike Marcinek, a Stanley Jakimowski. Those guys are high-level people. We need a few more kind of the boots-on-the-ground people that, yeah, kind of,
Understand the workings.
yeah.
Yeah.
Not that those guys don't,
No,
'cause
exactly.
they do. But again, they're just a higher,
You put it in, yeah.
that makes sense.
needed that,
yeah.
punch me in the
And that's
face.
that's
Because
where,
that's what I was thinking the
that's the
same thing,
advantage of
too.
having Jim and Tim, because they're kind of the boots on the ground people that can see that change and say, no, instead of it going back to the board, now it's a $5,000 fix. Those guys can be right there on the spot, make the quick adjustment, it's $100 to fix. It's just, it's better off. What else? This is Tim's first report, so.
Yep, so hopefully it was enough.
No, I think the board appreciates your speed.
Okay, no, exactly. I'm not gonna ask for
We
250
appreciate
million.
your
but-
honesty.
That's right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but we'll have Tim back at the end of the projects, maybe just to give a kind of wrap up.
Yep.
And then as we get more into the community center over the summer, we'll have Tim in as part of the team that's helping put all that together.
And if you, have any questions, definitely reach out to me. I'm available all the time. So. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Tim. Okay. All right, so we have to add a few things to the agenda, but let's take care of the next two. All right, so item number 9, discussion, take possible action regarding the town planner. At this point, I'm going to take a motion to table. Wait, hold on.
I just want to
That was a
note,
question.
you have a draft agreement that is still in red line, and the final terms have not been worked out with the VCOG yet, so we're certainly not prepared to go forward on this at this time.
So,
A motion to table would make sense, and if I can just, as long as I have the microphone, just jump to the next item. We had an extensive presentation at the last meeting, as you know. Since that time, the town attorney, Kevin Condon from Oxford, has reached out to me, and we've had some discussions trying to fine-tune some of our concerns. So we're not prepared to make a recommendation yet on the NEMBA trail application either. So it would be in order to table both of these items at this time.
okay. Do you think, with regards to number 9, at least, you'll have the ability to have that worked out by June 4th?
You saw how fast we were. I would think so.
Okay.
But
So-
someone has to get back to us
So
from the other
the
side.
question is then, and I'll put this out to the board, and somebody can make a motion if they would like to. Does the board want to give permission, since we've all agreed to the position, the money has been allocated for the fiscal year 20 budget, do you want for the board to give me permission to sign the contract pending town council's approval, and then report back? Or do you want to have it reported by Rich to this board? Because remember, our schedule gets a little funky in June and July. And I don't want to, A, have to hold this up because then we can't bring the person in, or B, have to call you in for a special meeting in the summer just for one item. So it's up to the six of you what you'd like to do. In certain instances, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Well, what would we be deciding on? Or what would you be deciding? What would we be giving you the power to decide on?
Just to be able to sign the agreement. Because we've, everything,
Specifically with only, the one party that we have.
the
in front of
ca-
us.
the candidate's been identified. The town will be paying $30,000 for the cost of that person. That's already been budgeted and approved.
And incidentally, that document has the wrong dollar sum in it.
Yeah. So, and it's really just Gary O'Connell, who is the attorney for the COG, and Rich, just negotiating the language of this agreement, and then Oxford signing off as well.
So we have no ability to choose a candidate outside of just going with what the COG has decided for us, right?
It's the COG's
The
employee.
COG's employee.
Correct.
And our only decision is whether to say yes to joining it or no, and we basically already said yes.
Correct.
By budgeting it.
Yes.
Okay, then I'm fine with it.
Oh, well, and Rory is holding his hand up.
Members of the professional staff.
A part of the, in the, right, correct.
Mhm.
So we know who we're getting, we were comfortable with the candidates.
This is the third round of interviews? Second? Yeah. And again, this is a higher level planner. That's why the amount went up as well, because we were, through our interviews, realized we were not going to get the appropriate candidate for the amount of money we were offering.
Okay.
So if someone would like to do that, they can make a motion. If not, we can make a motion to table and take it up at our June 4th meeting again. It's totally up to the board. So this is the group participation part.
I'm fine with you signing the agreement.
Well, you have to actually make a motion,
I make a motion to allow First Selectman Miller to sign the contract,
Second motion.
pending approval
pending
of
approval from town attorney.
town council.
Right.
Right, so Emery made the motion.
I'll second.
Want to second it? Rob will second it. Is there any other discussion? Any other questions? No, and again, Rich and I will give a full report once it takes place, and we'll send out an email once it takes place with a copy of the executed agreement so everybody can see it, and then you can certainly raise any concerns or issues that you may have. Okay, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Chair votes aye, motion passes 7-0. Okay, item number 10, discussion take possible action regarding NEMBA trail application. At this point, I'll take a motion to table.
So moved.
Motion by Anne Marie, second by Trish. All in favor? Opposed? Abstained? Chair votes aye, motion passes 7-0. Okay, make a motion to add to the agenda, and Rich, I want you to help me with this so I say it correctly. Executive session to discuss,
Executive session to discuss a pending claim involving a light lien at 95 Haddad Road, and a possible public session to follow thereafter.
okay? And we will be inviting town council Richard Paterla into executive session with us. So can I have a motion to do so?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Anne Marie, second by Al. All in favor? Opposed? Abstained? Okay, motion passes 7-0. We'll go into executive session at 8:06 PM.